If you call enough sellers, eventually you're going to talk to somebody that is hostile, somebody that's rude to you. They're mean, they're direct, they're straight to the point, and they're really hard to open up. There are a lot of trainers out there, a lot of people out there that will just say, hey, that's not a motivated seller. Just continue and move on. And the truth is, I built my business off of calling those hostile sellers and closing deals that other people couldn't. Back when I didn't have any money, all I could really afford was to buy old age lead lists that have been called by 20, 30, 40 other investors. They've been hammered and they were just tired of talking to everyone. And so in this video, what I'm going to be covering are the key points of how to actually get through to those sellers, how to break their guard so you can understand their real problems and start closing those deals too. If you're new to this channel, all we do is we teach individual wholesalers how to get to $100,000 per month. And then from there, how to train their reps to hit $100K a month each. So that way you can run a multiple seven-figure business. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. I have another banger for you guys. So let's talk about why sellers are hostile. Like, why do we actually have these hostile sellers? Number one, the most common is that they have been called before by a bunch of other wholesalers, by a bunch of other investors. So they're a little bit jaded. With this, if you sound like everyone else, they are going to treat you like everyone else. Everyone else is probably doing the same thing. Hey, Bob, how are you doing today? Tell me a little bit about the property. What's the condition of it? How much are you looking to get for it? What's your time frame? Sellers have heard it all before. If you sound like everybody else, you're just going to get shut down. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. Number two is they have something called sales resistance. And this could be from a couple of different things. Now, normally this is just a defense mechanism. The reason that we have a defense mechanism is to protect ourselves. And a lot of people, they just come into the call and they go, I'm about to talk to a salesperson. If this salesperson gets information out of me, they're going to use this to negotiate the price even lower. So I need to put my wall up so that way the person does not take advantage of it. That's what they're thinking in their brain. It's really important for you to understand that. Now, this is what is not the case 99% of the time. But what most people believe is that the seller is just a bad person. They're just an asshole to everyone. That's supposed to say person. They're just an asshole to everyone. They're just a bad person. I can tell you, I have tons of friends that are great people, very nice friends, family members. And if you were to call them after they filled out a form online, they'd probably be pretty rude to you. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. These people that are being hostile, they're being straight, they're being direct, they're being right to the point. This is not because they are bad people. I guarantee you when they're talking to their kids, when they're talking to their family, when they're talking to their friends, they're not necessarily rude. It's not like they're assholes to everyone. They just have their sales resistance up. Maybe they've been called before, they're a little bit jaded, or they're just having a bad day. All of those things are possible. And so I'll tell you what that's not, and it's not because the seller hates you. And this is something that's really important to understand, because if you think every single time that the reason that this person is rude to me is because they hate me, what you end up sounding is defensive. You sound defensive on your calls. And when a hostile seller hears a defensive buyer, that is where they run over you. And so I hear this all the time inside of my advanced center circle with some of our newer students that are learning the process, is you can hear the frustration in their voice when they're talking to a hostile seller. You literally hear them get frustrated. You hear them get defensive. And every single time they get steamrolled. Now, I'll give you guys a perfect example. And I have a very different sales process than this guy. His name's RJ Bates. Recommend you watch some of his training or watch some of his videos when somebody is hostile with them. The guy just does a really good job of staying cool, calm, and collected, even when someone's an asshole. I've heard lives of him talking to real estate agents and they're like, get to the point. And he just stays cool, calm, and collective. He doesn't get like super defensive. And that's why he can break through some of those people. Now I'm going to give you guys some more tactics that actually work effectively against all different types of hostile sellers. But the main thing you need to understand is it's not personal. If you take it personally, you've already lost the conversation. You have to be even keel throughout the entire process. Let's talk about where this actually happens. The first thing that you're going to get is right at the beginning of the call, right? So we'll just call this the beginning. You will get, let's say, I don't know if I even spelled that right. I'm not a speller, by the way, so it's probably spelled incorrectly, but you'll get something like, just give me an offer. Give me an offer or get off the phone. Something right there. Or I get tons of calls on this. I get tons of calls on this. Like, what's your offer? Just get to the point. The most important thing in the first couple of seconds when you get this is that you master the playful tonality. If you do not master the playful tonality, you are going to get steamrolled here. Let me give you guys an example. You call a seller, you say, hey, it looks like you just filled out a form on our website about possibly selling a house on Main Street. And they go, yeah, give me an offer, get off the phone. I might go, man, it sounds like you've been getting a few calls on this. They're like, yeah, what's your point? Well, you mean to tell me that you didn't sign up to get like 50 calls a day on this? Is that what you're telling me? And a lot of times they'll chuckle there, right? And our goal with a resistant seller is to get them to lower their guard. And it's really hard to be rude to someone that just made you laugh. There are tons of trainers out there. There's a really, I don't know his name. I see him all the time playing like Django, and he cold calls people. And most of the time he just makes them laugh. And that's how he breaks through to them, because he's cold calling fully. And so when you can make someone laugh, you trigger the part of their brain that releases a little bit of dopamine. It relaxes them, and that helps them open up. It's the same way, like when I used to go skydiving, all of the instructors, they could tell you're nervous. They're going to make you laugh a little bit just to relax you so you can get into the part of your brain that makes rational decisions. And so that's one example, right? If the seller is just like pressing you and pressing you and pressing you, you have to go playful to be able to disarm them. So for example, seller says, just give me an offer, right? Hey, you said you were going to give me an offer. Just give me an offer. Well, it's actually what I'm doing here, man. Now, obviously I would need to know a little bit more details about the property, the condition, and when you're even looking to sell, just to see if our offer would even make sense. Are you with me there? And so I have to go playful. Now, let me show you, I could do the exact same thing in a defensive tone, and I'm going to get steamrolled. If the seller says, just give me an offer, and you go, well, yeah, that's why I'm calling, but I need to know a few more details about the property and the condition and when you're looking to sell, just to see if our offer makes sense. If I sound defensive like that, the seller is going to get more resistant. They're going to start steamrolling me. If I go, well, that's what I'm doing here, or that's what I'm here for, brother, something very playful there, then it's going to help lower their guard. Obviously, I would need to know like a few details about the property, right? Like the condition and when you're looking to sell. Man, honestly, just to see if our offer would even make sense for you. That's the difference. And the more the seller tries to press you, the more you have to stay in your frame. The more you get defensive, the more they are going to steamroll you. Now, let's talk about getting into problem impact with some of these hostile sellers, right? So this is where they could say, I don't see how that's relevant. And I've made another video on this going into more detail. But when you go into problem impact with these hostile sellers, you need to do something called framing. And framing is just giving a reason as to why you're asking the question. Otherwise, they're going to be like, how is that even relevant? And so let's say you're talking to an investor. Investors can oftentimes be like relatively hostile because they know the game. They buy properties at discounts. They've been there. So when I'm asking the investor questions about the situation of the property, I might start it out with, okay, there are tenants there now, right? I'll ask that question normally. And this is something that we're going to want to know if we buy it. I mean, how much are the tenants actually paying for rent right now? And if we inherited the property, like, would you say that these are, they're tenants that pay every single month on time, the exact time they're supposed to, or what's going on there? And then I can go and ask another question. I'm framing the questions. I'm giving them context as to why I'm asking the question. If the property's vacant and I need to ask a question like, how long has it been vacant? I might say, yeah, and just so we know, there are certain timeframes where we have to do additional inspections on the house. How long has the property actually been vacant for? And then when I frame the question as to why I'm asking it, they're more likely to give me a response. I have to frame that question to be able to get that response. The next thing, like let's say that they're a homeowner, and even at some point, if I'm like, oh, really? Where are you headed next? And they're like, well, why is that any of your business? I will just go, man, I'm just curious. I'm not trying to bite you or anything. And most of the time, they will laugh at that, and then they will give you the real answer as to what they're doing. If I cannot break the resistance from the connection phase into the situation phase, basically when I'm gathering my information, it's going to be really hard to recover from that when I go into problem impact. So if you have a extremely hostile seller and then you're asking questions like, tell me, why are you looking to sell the property, or what came up? They're going to keep their wall up. So you're not actually going to be able to get through them. So my goal in the first couple seconds is to break that resistance down so I can get into the problem impact. And I might continue to use framing. I might continue to use a playful tone. I'll give you guys another example. If I want to find out why the seller is selling an investment property, why the seller is selling a vacant property, instead of me asking a question like, okay, so tell me, why are you looking to sell the house? Or they're like, I don't know, none of your business, or I'm just looking for offers. I'm just trying to move on from it. I might use something playful there as well. I might say, well, hold on, man, you've owned this house for like 10 years. The tenants are paying. It sounds like things are going like fairly fairly well for you. When you sell this house, you just taking a one-way trip to Vegas and putting it all on black? Or I mean, what's the plan there, man? And they go, no, I really want to sell it so I can buy this other rental. Really? Where's the other rental property? Now I can go into that because I have their guard down. Now, if you're working a relatively new lead, it's a lot easier to be able to do that, right? You can break their guard down because typically they have a little bit of resistance, but it's not like they've just been bombarded by millions and millions of people. Let me walk you through something. I'm going to give you guys a little hack of something that I've done with really hostile leads that I've had to follow up with. People that, I know from the notes they're going to be hostile. I know that they've been hostile to other people before, or they've just been called by 30, 40 other investors, and they're very quick to hang up the phone. So this is going to be somebody that's probably hung up on somebody else on your team, or they've hung up on somebody in the past. This is the process that I use. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll call them with a familiar tone. I'll say, hey, Bob, can you hear me? They're like, yeah, who's this? Oh, yeah, it's just John. It's John Lallande over at Sellies USA. Hey, I'm going through and updating some of our notes here. Are you still getting calls on that house on 123 Main Street? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, dude, all the time. I get calls on this every single day. And you got to go playful. Yeah, that's what I thought, man. That could be trouble. Let me get that updated. What did you do to move on from that house, just so I can update my notes and take you off our list? Now notice how I'm framing it. What did you do to move on from that house, just so I can update my notes and take you off my list? Then they're going to say, well, I just decided to keep it, or they're going to say, if they sold it, there's nothing you can do. You already lost the deal. But they're like, oh, no, I just decided to keep it. Then I'm going to use a skeptical tone. I'm going to say, oh, and did you just get like a bunch of lowball offers and decide to hold off altogether? Or what ended up happening? They'll be like, yeah, pretty much. That was exactly what ended up happening. And my last question is going to be this. This has worked so effectively. It's literally made me hundreds of thousands of dollars off of essentially dead leads. Is I'll say, yeah, you know what? Honestly, you could be better off just doing that. I mean, help me understand though, when you reached out to us back in June of last year, what were you hoping to accomplish by selling the house? Now, from there, they get into the real problem. I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars calling old age leads that have hung up on other people with that exact sales process. So far we covered what happens if they say, just give me an offer. We covered, hey, I get a ton of calls on this. And then lastly, those hostile leads that just hang up on you. Now, if you actually want to practice this stuff, because obviously you can't practice this stuff on a YouTube video. If you want to master it, you do need to be able to practice it. I'm going to drop a link to our advanced inner circle where we do a training every single day. We do objection handling, we do phrase breakdowns, and we review your calls. So that way you can perfect this and start closing those deals as well. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do that. I will see you guys on the next video. Bye, everybody.